Hi, it's Anna here. Thanks for tuning in. So, today I want to talk about the fact that this path towards wholeness, sovereignty, truly requires to keep a wide open heart. And what I want to start with is that this is a knowing, or I guess a guidance that I was given as a child, even though obviously I didn't understand it like that at the time, since I was a kid. And it was something like that. Whatever you do, whatever happens, do not close your heart. And this is something I've had to navigate, as a deep feeling soul, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have had to do the same, where there's been many opportunities that could and should have brought you to your knees and make you want to close your heart. But you've actively worked throughout your life to keep this heart open. And I want to emphasize this because it's not as if, some of us are just like magically, just wired that way and it doesn't require any work. Like it actually requires work to keep a wide open heart in this world. A lot of you have gone through actual trauma, abuse, all sorts of bullshit. So I know that, you know what I'm talking about. And it requires navigating a lot of pain, right? Because closing ourselves off and putting up defensive walls is, very tempting at times. Because keeping a wide open heart whilst navigating all sorts of stuff hurts like hell. It hurts like hell. And so I want to explain today that if you've ever felt this inability to close your heart and to close your field, like a lot of teachings for empath actually sort of like tell you to put up defensive walls, right? To put up a protective bubble. If you don't have the ability to do that, it's not actually a vulnerability. It's your soul absolutely refusing to sabotage your evolution. So I want to bring this slide that I keep bringing over and over again, and this is based on the work of Rudolf Steiner. And if you want an actual detailed explanation of this slide, please go and watch my codependency misdiagnosis series. I think it's in part 3 that I go into a lot of detail. But just for the purpose of this video, I want to explain that we go through astronomical ages, impersonal astronomical ages, like the age of Aries, the age of Pisces, the age of Aquarius on this table, that require us to develop spiritual organs. This is the whole point of us being here and incarnating. It's not just, to be happy, to amass a fortune, to be successful in the material sense. There's actually a lot of meaning, a lot of spiritual meaning to us being here. And it's a developmental meaning, an evolutionary meaning. And so a lot of you guys, we are currently in the age of Pisces still. You've already developed the heart, the spiritual organ of the heart. You've already achieved consciousness soul. And what this means is that the age of Pisces required us to become more permeable after the age of Aries. So the age of Aries is where we were given this sense of individuality, because before that we actually were living more in a group consciousness perspective. This really solid sense of individuality was developed during the age of Aries. This is for the first time we were able to say I am. This is where the Descartes saying I think therefore I am comes from. But after that came the age of Pisces, where we had to remove those rigid walls and we had to become more permeable again. And this is the development of this heart, the development of moral feeling, what Steiner calls consciousness soul. In the stage of consciousness soul that we're still in technically, the walls of the ego must become permeable again. We are actually designed at this time to open up to direct, objective spiritual perception and absorb the reality. So when you look at it this way, right, it's actually ridiculous to tell a soul that has reached consciousness soul to stop absorbing, because you cannot actually rewrite cosmic physics, right? What I'm trying to say is that when people say stop absorbing, there is a nugget of truth there, but this is where we have to become extremely precise about what it means, so we can focus on the things that really move the needle forward for us. So when there are a lot of teachings telling you that your empathy is weakness, it's a wound, you need to stop absorbing, you need to stop doing all these things, again, there's a nugget of truth, but we'll get into the detail after. But they are literally telling you to flee the demands of the consciousness soul and to run backwards into the defensive intellectual ego containment of the age of Aries. This is where we have to be very careful, right? Because there is a method to this madness, right? There is a meaning and an organic evolution throughout the ages to develop these spiritual organs. So the last thing we want to be doing is to go backwards, right? So this is where we have to be very careful about the sorts of teachings and the sorts of things that we absorb online, right? As we navigate this path, because where we absolutely do not want to come to a place where we put up defensive walls. A lot of the stuff that you see on social media, if you tune into the frequency behind it, is actually very defensive. And like I said initially, I understand the urge, right? Because when you've been through a lot and you've been through a lot of pain, it can feel like a relief to go that way, right? To go to protect it in terms of like defensive walls and to close that heart. But it is actually regressive. This is what will bring you back to where actually some people still are, because they haven't developed consciousness soul. So we need to be careful who's teaching what as well and what's relevant for you. If you are resonating with my channel and my teaching, it's because you've done this. I tend to attract very advanced empathetic souls. And I want to explain to you that the next step for you is not that. It's not to put up those walls and be defensive. It's to ignite the spiritual will. So coming back to this slide, this is the age of Michael that we're currently in, which is not an astrological age. It's a personal age from the spiritual hierarchy, actually helping us bridge the gap between the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius. And this is a gift. This is the gift for the empathetic souls who have achieved consciousness soul. The development of the spiritual will, that strong sense of self, that strong protector within, and that strong inner authority, which comes from spirit, which is directly an embodiment of spirit, which comes with inner strength, discernment, courage, boundaries. This is the gift that allow us to remain open. So we don't have to retreat into a fortress or building a fortress around our heart. We can stand in the open field by activating this spiritual will that comes as a strong protector. So the true path does not change your receptivity, your capacity to absorb. It changes what happens to what you absorb. So when our field is porous like that, because we have those rose-colored glasses that make us not capable to really fully understand what's happening around us and see evil, to want to protect ourselves. And we tend to like come into a room and just absorb everything, and then it just sits there in our field. And this is what creates a lot of health issues, because it sits there and it has nowhere to go. We haven't activated our alchemical power. In a sense, you could view it as an unfinished power, but because it is unfinished in this day and age where we are surrounded by so much toxicity, it becomes very dangerous for us. So this is where the spiritual will comes in, and this is the gift that needs to be activated So you don't go backwards, you keep going forward. And the image that I want to offer as well is that it's not, all this stuff about being weak, being porous, being stop absorbing, it's a wound, it's codependency, all that stuff. Like, let's just park it for a moment. The image that I want to offer is that the spiritual wheel is the dragon, because it really feels like that. And I've spoken to enough of you to know that I'm not an isolated case, and it's just not my own personal interpretation and feeling. It feels like fire, like a volcano in your gut. When the dragon comes in, this is your protector, and you shouldn't fear it. There's a lot of fear that comes with this power, because what you've seen in the world modeled is this really toxic and unhealthy, aggressive power. But that dragon that comes in, it's to protect the holy grail that sits in your heart. That open heart is the holy grail. And I found this image online. So it looks like, it's a common image, actually. And it made me think as well of, if we reinterpret the archetype of the princess, in the fortress with the dragon and the knight that comes in, if we reinterpret this in the age of Michael, I really see it like that. I see the dragon as protecting the pure heart. It's not even about a female and a male anymore. It's literally about the heart. And this is the path towards sovereignty. So you can't actually stop absorbing technically. Like, if we talk about like the mechanics of what happens in your field, you can't stop absorbing it because it's part of your evolutionary design. But what you need to be doing is to shatter the rose-colored glasses, the dream consciousness that I've spoken about over and over again in various videos. You need to shatter that perception so you can see clearly things exactly as they are, including your heart, so you can bring in that spiritual will, because the spiritual will is on the other side of those rose-colored glasses. When you're able to shatter them, you will feel the volcano starting to rumble in your gut. And so that comes in as a strong sense of self. It comes in as this spiritual activation inside of you that allows you to anchor more and more of your light, more and more of your spirit, so that it feels like a strong core, a strong, solid inner core. And it has nothing to do with being aggressive, revengeful, toxic, abusive. Like, we don't become like that. The dragon comes from pure self-love. It's a very different energy. But it might look aggressive to other people when you finally put strong and firm boundaries, especially if you are surrounded by extremely entitled and pushy people. You will probably be the villain in the story, but it doesn't matter. Your job is to attune, so you know that this is the true path. No more of over tolerance, enabling, absorbing all the garbage of everyone and just carrying it in your field like a baggage. It's a move from being a sponge that absorbs and just doesn't really know what to do with it, to becoming a furnace, where you still absorb technically, it's still coming in, but because you're embodying the sun, you become a furnace. It gets completely incinerated in your field. So technically, like, if you think about it, if you feel it, it doesn't feel like absorbing, but technically it is still absorbing. I hope I'm making myself clear. Because we are not actually putting up walls. We don't need to visualize a bubble around our field. We don't need to do all of that stuff. We are more powerful than this. it's a mistake to think that we need to be doing that. It's a mistake because you will think that you're a victim to the world. You will think that your capacity to feel is a vulnerability and a weakness and a problem. That has to be, like, that mindset has to be completely shifted. It is your strength. It's just an unfinished power that needs a strong protector. And once you activate that dragon, right, there's an integration that happens inside of you where you still actually fully open. And your field becomes the boundary. Like, you don't really have to think about it anymore. So it's a progressive journey, obviously, where you will need to tune in to start feeling this, to start putting those firm boundaries. Like, it's an evolution, right? It comes with the doing. But what I'm trying to offer here is a change of perception, because I'm just so sick of seeing these narratives about viewing empathy as a weakness. It's actually what's preventing us from doing the real work of this age to activate this power and this spiritual will, this dragon. Because people are scared of it. And they try to bypass that and they try to do it any other way. So that's the middle path, right? We're not closing our heart. We're not putting walls around it, because that's a detour, that's regressive, that will require a lot of healing to actually undo all that. We keep an open heart, but it also doesn't mean that we keep the rose-colored glasses and we think it's all fine and we can be around anyone and around toxicity, and that the highest level of spiritual advancement is to tolerate and be peaceful no matter what. No. We realize that keeping this open heart requires us to activate this dragon, this spiritual will, to protect it. Because we're living at a time when we're surrounded by takers and this parasitism that's going to be feeding off of you. And the true path requires you to have zero tolerance to be around that toxicity. You will not actually be able to move forward on this path if you stay around toxicity and toxic people, no matter what you want to tell yourself intellectually. No matter if you want to tell yourself, I'm healed now, so I can do this, I've forgiven them, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't work like that. You will feel it in your body. Your body is so intelligent, it's always talking to you. So whilst, yes, you're moving towards becoming a sun and a furnace, your job is not to stay around these people to do that horizontal work, because it's exhausting. It's a waste of your time. You're not supposed to be the garbage incinerator. You have to let people have their own garbage. Everyone is an adult, right? All the adults have to deal with their own garbage. So you don't need to fix your sensitivity. You need to strengthen your sense of sovereignty, your strength of inner self. This is what knowing this self means. Can you see how you have to flip things around from what's very popular? You can fast track the path so much if you're able to really get that. Because if you manage to get it, right, to get that it's an activation of a completely different energy inside of you, the way you put boundaries is going to be so much more effective, because it's not just going to be putting boundaries because you're following a list of like what you should be doing. It's an actual expression of strengthening that field. Putting those boundaries will come with a completely restructuring of your internal field at a cellular level to become that furnace. And what happens, and why you know that it's working, it's because toxic people actually won't even be able to be around you. They will give you such a wide berth because it just can't. Like your energy now is toxic to them. When you were so open with no protector, it was caviar to them. They could feed off that. But when you become a furnace, they can't do that anymore. So that's what I wanted to offer today. This image of the dragon protecting the Holy Grail. This is what is our job. We're moving towards sovereignty while staying completely open. And that's why it hurts so much. On this path of awakening, this path of ascension, this is the hardest path. To do and navigate this path with a heart wide open is very painful. So I don't want to sugarcoat that. But it's a very crucible, if you can stay with it. It's a very crucible that allows you to build and polish that inner core like a diamond in a furnace. The path is not to pretend that evil doesn't exist. It's not to pretend that you can just accept everything and tolerate everything because you're just peaceful. It's not like that. We're shattering the rose-colored glasses and we're bringing in the spiritual wheel. And as you navigate this path, initially it's going to be very difficult. You're going to have to put a lot of boundaries, and you're going to have to navigate your feelings about it, because there's a lot of programming that needs to be dismantled as well. The guilt programs, all that stuff. But it's not forever, because your field literally changes. And you become so attuned to this spirit, your true self, so attuned within. It's like this core pillar that you no longer really need to figure things out. You can feel things and you move accordingly. That's what makes this path so worth it. It's because even though it's so difficult, right? When you think about the other path of putting up walls and trying to guard yourself from this world and the evil in the world and being at the mercy of everything, it's exhausting to live that way. It's not only much more powerful to stay open, but it's also more peaceful. Because you don't need to brace yourself, shield yourself. Once you've navigated that, once you've built this organ, you don't need to do that anymore. And you will learn to love that dragon. That dragon becomes a part of you. So that's what I had for you today. I hope this is helpful, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.